Hello everyone, this is Rachel in the Potting Shed, taking a look at the Maria Thus Biodynamic Calendar for April 2022. It's been glorious spring weather for the last week or so, starting to get cold again now. Make sure you protect your early sowings with fleece or something similar, and be careful with your new transplants. So there's lots going on this month. The soil is starting to warm up. So the first thing I tend to look at when I come to the calendar is the new moon, full moon. So under solar and lunar events, you'll see this dark circle, which is the new moon. And over the page, you'll see the full moon denoted by this white circle. So what we often find is that germination is stronger in this time before the full moon. Now, at the moment, if you look over here, we've got lots and lots of grey patches. Now, these grey patches are times that are unfavourable for doing any important work in the garden. And sometimes, like this time over here at the bottom, where we've got Good Friday, you'll find is always an unfavourable time. So if you look down here, it talks about Maria Thus research showing that planting and other work is unfavourable from Good Friday to dawn on Easter Sunday. So every year you'll find that that section over Easter is blocked out as an unfavourable time. These other sections are usually because of certain planetary aspects and conjunctions or oppositions that are going on. And it may be a very specific conjunction or opposition, or it may be something that's not been seen for a long time, and therefore the research is inconclusive as to whether or not it's a favourable time. So it's actually put down as unfavourable to avoid any unbeneficial effects. Okay, so this time before the full moon is a really good time for germination. Germination tends to be stronger, more vital. So it's a great time to sow your seeds. It's time to direct sow as the soil warms up, so on leaf days. So we've only got one tiny area here really, if you want to use the calendar in this very specific way. So in this leaf time I would be sowing spinach, chard and lettuce, leafy crops like that. And we've got quite early on before the full moon a big chunk of root, and then another section of root here. And that's a good time for sowing your carrots, radishes. I've got radishes up in the garden, which is wonderful. And then on this flower day, you could be sowing flower seeds like cornflower, poppies, things that the pollinators love. I like to sow phacelia at this time as well. It comes up really quickly and gives a really great source of beneficial food for the bees and pollinating insects. And then a nice big section of fruit where you can sow things like your peas and maybe more broad beans. Now you could also start off your squashes and courgettes inside in this fruit time. Courgettes and squashes are considered fruit in the biodynamic planting calendar. So the next rhythm that I like to look at is this northern transplanting time. And this is the time of the descending moon, where the moon is moving lower in the sky. And this is all about the soil. It's about rooting, it's about soil connection and really enhancing the energy in the soil. So this is a time for transplanting and potting on, and a time for preparing beds and borders, possibly top dressing, hoeing the soil, digging in green manure. So I really love to use the calendar at this time to tend my plants. So I would be perhaps hoeing my overwintered broad beans on a fruit day, giving my root crops and the area where my roots are going to be either a hoe or a top dress. I also, on leaf days, ridge up my asparagus and give that a hoe and a clear, like to weed it then as well. So it's really about all things soil. But now the soil is warming up, it's also a wonderful time to be spraying Preparation 500, the biodynamic preparation that is all about the soil. So if you were a very large farm, you would possibly spray your root crops on a root day. You might spray your leaf crops on a leaf day, but you're not actually spraying the crop itself, you're spraying the area where that crop will be, the soil around it basically. And Maria Thus actually recommends in the calendar spraying just before sowing, during sowing and after sowing. Now for us with busy schedules and small gardens, that's really not practical. So finding a time within this northern transplanting time to do your spray is what's the most beneficial. And a root day would be absolutely perfect for that. But there is another beneficial time that many people use, and that's denoted by these little symbols here. This is the moon in opposition to Saturn. Now that's when the moon and Saturn are on opposite sides of the Earth, and the effect that's been observed by this opposition is a balancing and a harmony. And if you spray your 500 in the afternoon just before this opposition, you have a really strong stimulating effect on the soil. Now spraying is always a bit of a daunting task. We stir this substance into water for an hour, and when you're on your own that can feel like an absolutely massive job when you've already got too much to do. If you are able to find a local group of biodynamic growers and you can get that information from the Biodynamic Association, then I would really strongly suggest trying to get together a stirring circle. What's wonderful about that is that you can meet regularly to stir your preparations, and then you can all take a bit and spray it on your own plot, or you can all work together. But what it also gives you is an opportunity where maybe some of you aren't there to be able to spray each other's plots as well. So I'd really strongly advise that, and it's a wonderful social thing as well. Now this opposition comes every month, so you could decide to take that monthly as a time to really give your gift to the garden. And for me, the stirring of 500 and also 501, which I'll talk more about at another time, it really is a gift. It's a gift on the physical level of wonderful fermented soil enhancer full of microbes and bacteria. And it's also a gift of my time. It's a connection. It's an offering to my piece of land, however small it is. Now stirring of 500 always takes place in the afternoon, usually after 3 o'clock, going into the evening. This is a time where we consider the earth to be breathing in. So after lunch, the earth is taking in the moisture and the forces around it. In the morning, it's breathing out. Imagine that picture of dewy, misty mornings. It's an out-breath for the earth. So anything that we want to go into the soil, we do in the afternoon. And that's a really important point to mention as well in terms of hoeing, because you can actually work with your conditions, weather conditions, in this way. So if you've actually had a very, very dry patch, you would always hoe your land and work your land in the afternoon. That's when it's breathing in, so any moisture in the atmosphere, that can all be taken into the earth. But if it's been very, very, very wet, you could hoe and work in the morning, releasing some of that. So just a little bit about this pink section here, the southern transplanting time. So where the northern transplanting time is all about the soil, it's the descending of the moon in the sky. The southern transplanting time is the ascension. And so this is all about the upper parts of the plant. It's a wonderful time to cut your tulips. if you've got tulips growing in your garden or some early flowers, what you will find is if you cut them at this time, they often have a longer vase life and they're more vibrant. Okay, so the next rhythm I like to look at is apogee, and over here perigee. Now this is when, perigee is when the moon is closest to the earth, and apogee when it's furthest away. Now you'll also find these funny grey boxes always at perigee. It's seen that there's no real beneficial forces to be worked with here because the influence of the moon is so strong and watery. Okay, and a couple of other bits to mention here. I've written a big note about slugs here. So if you look down here for control of pests, it mentions that you can work with slugs April the 10th to April the 11th. Now slugs are always a major question. And if we turn to page 74, there's a lot of information here. And this gives you advice about how to create a watery slug juice, essentially, to spray on your garden to deter slugs. It also has a nice little bit down here about the leopard slug, which is a slug that's actually very beneficial. It eats other slugs' eggs and is really important to keep in your garden. So you can have a read of that too. Okay, so I really hope you enjoy the coming spring, the warming up of the soil and the absolute magnificence of spring arriving in all its glory. Bye-bye.